Welcome back. Now that we understand the data, let's take a look at the project requirements. Let's start with the data discovery requirements. Before we start ingesting or transforming the data, we want to ensure that the quality of the data is good and also the data would offer business value. So we need to provide the ability to perform exploration of the raw data. We want to make it easier for the data analyst to explore this data. So instead of providing the raw files as they are, we should apply the schema to the data so that it's easier to understand the data and gain business value from it. To support the business analysts who are already familiar with the Microsoft T-SQL language, we should offer the capability to perform data discovery using T-SQL. And finally, the business doesn't want to pay for any dedicated resources at this stage of the project. They want us to offer the ability to query this data using paper query model via the serverless infrastructure, and then they may decide to use dedicated resources based on the business value. Let's now take a look at the requirements for ingesting the data. We want to ingest all of the 7 files that we talked about spanning the various data formats. The data ingested into our data lake should conform to the following requirements. We should ingest the data into the data lake and store that in a columnar format such as Parquet so that it performs better with analytical queries. We should apply the right schema to the data including column names and data types. Also, we should create tables or views of the data so that it is easier to analyze and report from. We should provide the ability to query the data using T-SQL alongside other query engines such as Spark and data flows. The ingestion should again be done using the paper query model rather than using dedicated resources. Let's now take a look at the transformation requirements. We need tables that provide the data joined from the key data items that are required for reporting. For example, data from trips and taxi zones combined so that we can produce BI reports from this table. Similarly, we need tables and data sets with the data joined that to satisfy the analytical requirements. Also, transformed data must be available for consumption via T-SQL for ease of use for both analysis as well as BI tools. And finally, the transformed data should be stored in columnar format such as Parquet. We have a couple of BI reporting requirements. We want to produce a report to identify the demand for taxis during days of weeks as well as in different locations in the city, etc. We also want to produce a report to help with a campaign to encourage credit card payments as opposed to cash. We'll define the detailed requirements for these requirements, such as data items required and the visualizations to be made in a later lesson. But apart from these, we also want to build the capability to enable operational reporting on the data from the IoT devices on the taxis. Finally, let's go through some non-functional requirements. We want to schedule the pipeline to run at regular intervals. We want to have the ability to monitor the status of the pipeline executions, rerun failed pipelines, as well as the ability to set up alerts on failures. And that's the end of the requirements we've got. I'll see you in the next session.